Dad perfect events. I came home from 15 years of defense contracting in Afghanistan to find my son Ryan mucking horse stalls in the barn I built for him. He handed me a cup of water from the outdoor spigot, thinking I was some drifter looking for day work. He didn't recognize his own father. My name is Mitchell Barnes. I'm 58 years old. For the past 15 years, the world thought I was either dead from an IED blast or lost somewhere in the mountains of Kandahar. My brother Travis made sure of that. He told everyone I'd gone crazy, abandoned my family, and disappeared into the Afghan wilderness like some broken fool chasing government contracts. He was half right. I did chase contracts, but I was never broken. I was building something. While I built forward operating bases and rebuilt infrastructure that kept getting blown up, I also landed contracts worth $135 million in reconstruction money. Money I kept in overseas accounts, away from prying eyes. But I didn't know my fortune was growing, while my family was being destroyed back home in Montana. The day I returned to the ranch, the sky looked like old steel. Cold October winds swept across the plains, carrying the smell of pine and coming snow. I stood at the edge of my property, looking at the 3,000 acres I'd paid $2.2 million cash for 20 years ago, when I was still working stateside contracts. I bought this ranch for Ryan to give him something that would last generations. The main house was different now. Someone had added some ridiculous fountain out front. Luxury cars sat in the circular driveway. A Mercedes, a BMW, vehicles that cost more than most people make in a year. A woman I didn't recognize was lounging by a new swimming pool that hadn't been there when I left. She wore designer clothes and jewelry that sparkled in the afternoon sun. I adjusted my dusty hat and pulled my old military jacket tighter. My beard was long and gray, streaked with white. I looked exactly like what I wanted them to see. A wandering vet, maybe. Former ranch hand, looking for work. I'd learned in Afghanistan that the best intelligence comes from watching before you act. You observe. You plan, then you strike. I walked toward the barn, my boots crunching on gravel that used to be smooth. Inside, a man was forking hay into a stall. He was thin, too thin. His clothes hung loose like he'd lost 40 pounds and never bothered getting new ones. Dark circles under his eyes told me he wasn't sleeping much. His hands shook slightly when he moved, the shake of someone who worked too hard and ate too little. My heart nearly stopped. It was Ryan, my son. He was 36 now, but looked 50. The strong young man I'd left behind, the kid who could throw hay bales all day and still have energy to fix fences at sunset, had been worn down to nothing. He looked up when my boots scraped on the concrete. His eyes were wary, but not hostile. Just tired. So damn tired. "Excuse me, sir," he said, voice barely above a whisper. "If you're looking for work, you need to talk to the foreman. I'm just the stable hand." I wanted to say his name, but the words stuck in my throat like barbed wire. I looked at his hands, cracked and bleeding from the cold. I looked at his eyes, same hazel as his mother's, but empty now. No hope left, no light. "Just need some water," I said, keeping my voice steady. "Long walk from the highway." Ryan nodded and set down his pitchfork. He walked to the outside spigot, filled a dented tin cup, and brought it to me. When he handed it over, his sleeve rode up. I saw bruises on his forearm, yellow and purple, old and new. Someone had been hurting my boy. "You should move along before they see you," he whispered, glancing toward the main house. "My uncle doesn't like strangers on the property. He'll call the sheriff." "Your uncle?" I repeated slowly. "He owns this place," Ryan said, looking at his boots. "My father left it to him when he died. At least that's what the lawyer said. I work here to pay off the debts my dad left behind." The words hit me like a mortar round to the chest. "Debts? My father wasn't a good man, sir. He borrowed money from everyone before he took off for Afghanistan. Left us with nothing but bills and shame." Ryan's voice cracked. "Uncle Travis and Aunt Rebecca took us in. They let us stay, but we have to earn our keep." "Us? My daughter Sarah. She's 10. She helps in the kitchen." His voice got quieter, more broken. "She's diabetic. Needs insulin shots twice a day. My uncle controls the family account. He decides when she gets her medicine. I felt something cold and sharp twist in my gut. He controls her insulin?" Ryan nodded, eyes wet. "Keeps us in line. If I complain, if I try to leave, If I do anything they don't like, Sarah doesn't get her shots. You understand? They own us. They own every breath we take. I understood perfectly. My brother was using my granddaughter's life as a chain around my son's neck. I set the cup down on a hay bale, my hands trembling. Not from weakness, but from rage. That threatened to boil over. But I'd learned patience in Afghanistan. You don't survive 15 years in hostile territory by making stupid moves. You gather intelligence, you plan, then you strike when they least expect it. Thank you for the water, I said quietly. I walked away from that barn with my fists clenched so tight my knuckles went white. Every step took me further from my son, but closer to the truth I needed to uncover. I walked down the gravel path, past the fountain, past those luxury cars bought with my money. I walked until I reached the county road where my rental car waited. My lawyer, Adrian Cross, was sitting in the passenger seat, reading through a thick folder of documents. He'd been investigating for 6 months, ever since I'd contacted him from a secure phone in Kabul. Adrian was the only lawyer I trusted. We'd served together in the army before he went to law school. "How bad is it?" Adrian asked when I climbed into the driver's seat. "Worse than we thought," I said, starting the engine. "Show me what you found." We drove to a hotel in Bozeman. Adrian had booked the entire top floor for security reasons. In the main suite, he'd set up what he called a war room. Computers lined the walls. Documents were stacked on every surface. Surveillance photos covered a bulletin board. He'd been busy while I was finishing up my last contract. "Here's the timeline," Adrian started, pulling up files on his laptop. 6 months after you deployed, Travis filed a missing person report. Said you'd sent a final letter claiming you were disappearing forever, couldn't handle your debts to the government. I never sent any letter. I wrote Michelle every single week for 15 years. We found those letters. Travis intercepted your mail at the post office, had a deal with the postmaster, told him you were under federal investigation for contract fraud. Michelle never got a single one. She thought you'd abandoned her. The image of my wife Michelle waiting by the mailbox every day, hoping for word from me, believing I'd just walked away from our 25 years of marriage, made my chest feel like it was caving in. 2 years after you left, Travis petitioned the court, had a forged will saying you'd left everything to him if you died or went missing. Judge ruled in his favor. The ranch, the accounts, everything transferred to Travis and Rebecca. Adrian pulled up legal documents on his screen. We had the will analyzed by the best forensic experts money can buy. Perfect forgery. But the ink wasn't commercially available until 6 months after the document was supposedly signed. We can prove it's fake. What about Ryan? Why didn't he fight it? Adrian's expression darkened. Ryan was 21 when you left. He trusted Travis completely. They all did. Travis told them you'd confessed to stealing from your government contracts before you disappeared. Said federal agents were looking for you, that the only way to save the family was to let him take control and make things right. Every word a lie, but convincing lies. Ryan believed his father was a criminal who'd abandoned them to avoid prison. Michelle believed it at first too, but after a few years, she started asking questions. Started digging into the finances. What did Travis do? Changed tactics, started isolating them. Moved Ryan and Michelle out of the main house into the foreman's cottage, then later into the old bunkhouse. Gave them work around the ranch, said it was their contribution to paying off your debts. Slowly, over years, they went from family to staff to servants. Adrian clicked to financial records. Travis has been bleeding the ranch dry for a decade. Sold off 1,000 acres for $3.2 million. Mortgaged the remaining land for another $1.8 million. He's got accounts in the Caymans that we've traced but can't touch yet. What about Michelle? I asked, though I already dreaded the answer. She died 3 years ago. Cancer. The stress didn't help her fight it. Adrian's voice got quiet. She spent her last months trying to prove your innocence. Believed you'd come back someday. My wife was dead. The woman I'd loved since we were 20 years old died thinking I was a thief, but still defending my memory. I'd been building bases in Kandahar while she died alone. And my contracting work? Adrian smiled grimly. That's the beautiful part. Travis doesn't know about any of it. Doesn't know about the $135 million in your overseas accounts. He thinks you disappeared broke and desperate. I sat back in my chair. My brother had stolen my ranch, forged my will, enslaved my son, and was using my granddaughter's insulin as a weapon to keep them compliant. And he had no idea I was now worth more than he could spend in 10 lifetimes. What do we have on him legally? Wire fraud, mail fraud, forgery, child endangerment for controlling Sarah's medication. But we need him admitting it on tape. Confession evidence that will hold up in federal court. Adrian opened a metal briefcase containing several small electronic devices, military-grade listening equipment, undetectable by commercial sweepers. But you'll need to get inside that house. Leave that to me, I said. I spent the next 3 days watching the ranch from different positions, learning their routines like I was planning a tactical operation. Travis left every morning at 9 sharp for town, where he spent hours at Murphy's bar, playing the role of successful rancher. He'd buy rounds for anyone who'd listen to his stories about managing the family business and dealing with his deadbeat brother's debts. Made me sick. Rebecca stayed at the house, barking orders at the hired help. Most of them were decent folks who had no idea what was really going on. They just saw a woman running a household and a man who seemed overwhelmed by his responsibilities. Rebecca was smart about keeping the abuse private. Ryan worked from dawn until after dark. I watched him repair fences in the north pasture, feed livestock in the south barn, clean stalls, fix machinery. He did the work of 3 men and never complained. He ate his meals alone in the barn, cold sandwiches and black coffee. He slept in a tiny room behind the tack storage that had no insulation, no heat. In October in Montana, that room got down near freezing. Sarah was like a ghost drifting through the house. I caught glimpses of her through the kitchen window, small for her age, dark hair like her father, always carrying something or cleaning something. She moved carefully, like a child who'd learned that making noise brought punishment. I never saw her smile, never saw her playing like a normal 10-year-old should. On the 3rd afternoon, I watched Rebecca grab Sarah by the arm and shake her so hard the girl's head snapped back. Sarah started crying, and Rebecca slapped her across the face. I gripped my binoculars so tight I thought they might shatter. That night, I made my move. The security system was a joke. Travis had spent money on show, not substance. I disabled the back door sensor with a simple bypass and slipped into the house through the mudroom. The place reeked of expensive perfume and greed. Rebecca had redecorated with the worst kind of money can't buy taste. Gold fixtures everywhere, crystal chandeliers that belonged in a casino, velvet furniture that screamed new money. This was my home, the home I'd built for Michelle and Ryan, and they'd turned it into a monument to their theft. I moved silently through the rooms, planting listening devices. One in Travis's study behind a framed photo of him, shaking hands with some politician. One in the kitchen under the granite island. One in the master bedroom behind the headboard. Military equipment, undetectable, and designed to pick up conversations from 50 feet away. I was about to leave when I heard something that stopped me cold. Crying. Soft, muffled sobs coming from below. I followed the sound to the basement stairs. At the bottom, I found a small storage room. The door was locked from the outside with a heavy deadbolt. I knelt down and spoke through the crack. "Hello," I whispered. "Who's in there?" The crying stopped. "Who are you?" came a small, trembling voice. A child's voice. "A friend?" "What's your name?" "Sarah, my granddaughter." The little girl I'd never met was locked in a basement storage room like an animal. "Why are you in there, Sarah?" "I broke a plate during lunch. Aunt Rebecca said I have to stay here until I learn to be more careful." Her voice was so small, so defeated. I pressed my forehead against the door. My granddaughter was locked up for accidentally breaking a dish. "How long have you been in there?" "Since after lunch. I'm really hungry. And I need my shot. My arm starts hurting when I don't get my shot on time." They were withholding insulin from a 10-year-old child as punishment for a simple accident. "Listen to me, Sarah," I said, fighting to keep my voice steady. "I'm going to help you. Not tonight, but very soon. I need you to be brave a little longer. Can you do that for me? Are you really a friend? Adults usually lie to me. That nearly broke me. A 10-year-old who'd learned not to trust adults. I'm more than a friend, sweetheart. I'm someone who will never let anyone hurt you again. I promise you that." I heard footsteps on the floor above. Rebecca was coming downstairs. "I have to go now, but I meant what I said. I will come back for you." I slipped out through a basement window and disappeared into the darkness, but I didn't go far. I sat in the tree line with night vision equipment, watching the house until Rebecca finally unlocked that door at midnight. Sarah stumbled out, weak and shaking. Rebecca handed her a piece of bread and a glass of water, then shoved her toward the stairs. For the next 48 hours, I sat in that hotel room listening to the audio feeds from my devices. By the second morning, I had everything I needed to destroy them. Travis, drunk on expensive whiskey, bragging to Rebecca. The old fool made it too easy. All I had to do was get Carter Mills to fake the will and make up some debts. Hell, I had people believing Mitchell owed money to half the county. By the time anyone could have questioned it, I'd already sold the North Pasture and moved the money offshore. Rebecca's voice, cold as a winter wind. And the boy believes every word. He thinks his father was a thief and a coward. He'll work himself to death trying to pay off debts that never existed. It's perfect. What about the girl? Travis asked. She's getting older, starting to ask questions. She's leverage. As long as we control her medicine, Ryan will never leave. He'll never question us. He'll be our slave forever. If he gets uppity, we just delay her insulin a day or two. Amazing how cooperative he becomes. They were laughing about it, laughing about torturing my family. I turned off the recording equipment and called Adrian. Contact the FBI field office in Billings, I said. Tell them we have wire fraud, mail fraud, forgery, and child endangerment. Tell them I want arrest warrants ready within 48 hours. What about confronting them first? Oh, we're going to confront them, but not the way they expect. 2 days later, I walked into the law offices of Drummond Associates wearing a $3,000 suit and carrying myself like the man I really was. Someone worth $135 million who'd been betrayed by his own blood. I'd shaved off the beard and gotten a proper haircut. I looked like money because I had it. Travis and Rebecca were already seated at the mahogany conference table with Carter Mills, the sleazy lawyer who'd forged my will. They looked nervous but excited. The fake land deal Adrian had set up, $8 million cash for the remaining ranch property, had them practically drooling with greed. Ryan was there too, forced to wear a cheap suit that didn't fit right. He sat in the corner like hired help, which is exactly how they'd been treating him for 15 years. But there was one more chair at that table, a small one next to Ryan, and in it sat Sarah. My granddaughter was wearing a dress that was too big for her, probably something Rebecca had found at a thrift store. Her hair was pulled back so tight it stretched her scalp. She looked tired and scared. But when I walked into that room, something in her expression changed. She squinted at me like she was trying to remember something important. "Ladies and gentlemen," Adrian announced from behind me, "may I present my client, Mitchell Barnes." The name meant nothing to Travis at first. He stood up with that fake salesman's smile, extending his hand like we were old friends about to make a deal. "Mr. Barnes, it's a real pleasure. I hope we can get this transaction wrapped up quickly. I think you'll find this property exceeds all your expectations." I didn't shake his hand. I stared at him until that smile started to crack around the edges. "Sit down, Travis." Something in my voice made him obey without thinking. I walked slowly to the head of the table, pulled out an old photograph, and slid it across the polished wood. "You don't recognize me," I said to the room. 15 years is a long time, but I remember every one of you. The photo was from 2003, me, Michelle, and Ryan standing in front of the ranch house the day I signed the papers. Travis picked it up with shaking hands. His face went white as fresh snow. "No," he whispered, "this is impossible. You're supposed to be dead. I died when you decided I should die, Travis." But death didn't stick. Rebecca shot to her feet so fast her chair crashed backward. "This is fraud," she shrieked. "This man is an imposter. Mitchell Barnes is dead. He abandoned his family. I'm standing right here, Rebecca. Same Mitchell who paid $2.2 million cash for this ranch. Same Mitchell whose signature you had Carter forge on that will." I looked directly at Ryan. He was frozen, mouth hanging open, staring at me like he was seeing a ghost, which I suppose he was. "Ryan," I said softly, "look at me, son. Really look." He raised his head slowly. I watched recognition hit him like a lightning strike. His eyes went wide, then filled with tears. "Dad?" The word came out broken, like he was afraid to believe it. "Hello, son." Ryan stood up so fast his chair toppled over. He took one step toward me, then stopped, uncertain. They said you stole money. They said you abandoned us. They said Mom died because of what you did. They lied about everything, every single word. I signaled to Adrian. He pressed a button on his laptop, and Travis's drunken voice filled that conference room. The old fool made it too easy. All I had to do was get Carter Mills to fake the will and make up some debts. Travis tried to bolt for the door. He made it exactly 3 steps before FBI agents came through it, 4 of them, wearing body armor and carrying enough firepower to stop a small war. Travis Coleman, you're under arrest for wire fraud, mail fraud, and forgery. Rebecca Coleman, you're under arrest for child endangerment and conspiracy to commit fraud. Carter Mills, you're under arrest for notarizing false documents and conspiracy to commit fraud. Mills actually tried to fight, threw a wild punch at the nearest agent, and got face planted into the carpet for his trouble. His expensive suit didn't look so sharp, with his nose bleeding all over it. Rebecca was screaming about her rights and demanding lawyers. Travis tried to negotiate, the way cowards always do when they're caught. Mitchell, wait, we're family. We can work this out. I'll sign everything back over. I'll make it right. I walked up close enough to smell the fear sweating through his cologne. You killed my wife, I said quietly. You let Michelle die thinking I'd abandoned her. You stole 15 years from my son. You locked my granddaughter in a basement and used her insulin as a weapon. And you think we can work this out? I leaned closer. There's nothing to work out, Travis. You're going to prison. Your assets are being seized. Your accounts are frozen. And every night for the rest of your miserable life, I want you to remember that everything you built was stolen, and I took it all back. They dragged all 3 of them out in handcuffs. The room went quiet except for the sound of Sarah crying. Not from sadness, but from relief. I knelt down beside her chair. Remember me, sweetheart? I talked to you through the door. She nodded, wiping her eyes. You said you'd come back. I did. And I'm never leaving again. I looked at Ryan. He was crying too, 15 years of pain and shame pouring out of him. I'm sorry, I said. I'm sorry I wasn't here to protect you from them. He shook his head and wrapped his arms around me. It was awkward at first, the hug of a man who'd forgotten what love felt like. But then he relaxed into it, and I felt 15 years of separation start to heal. You came back, he whispered. That's what matters. We walked out of that building together, Ryan, Sarah, and me. The real family finally reunited. Over the next month, we rebuilt more than just the ranch. Ryan started eating at the kitchen table again, instead of alone in the barn. Sarah got her own room with a desk for homework and all the art supplies she wanted. The first time I tucked her into bed, she looked up at me with those serious eyes. Grandpa, will you really never leave again? Never, I promised. You're stuck with me now. Ryan and I worked side by side, fixing the damage Travis had done to the property and our relationship. 15 years is a long time, but blood runs deeper than time. One evening, watching Sarah actually play in the yard like a normal kid should, Ryan turned to me. I'm sorry I doubted you, Dad. You had every reason to doubt. They made sure of that. But you came back. Son, there was never a question about coming back. The only question was how long it would take. That's the thing about real family. Love doesn't have an expiration date. Justice doesn't forget. And some fathers will cross the world and back to protect their children. I'm Mitchell Barnes, and I finally came home. If you've ever had to fight for what's yours, remember this. Revenge isn't about anger, it's about love that refuses to die. And sometimes the best weapon against betrayal is simply never giving up on the people who matter most.